There's a couple things that are very important to me when creating Zoo Mafia. One is I want the criminal element to mean something, and I want the animal element to mean something. I don't want either to just be aesthetic.
I'm Nerdarchy Ted.
I'm Nerdarchy Dave. Welcome to Nerdarchy.
For nerds, by nerds.
All right, so we're going to do another design diary for Zoo Mafia. This is our third one. We've done two already. The first one was just kind of an overview of the concept of Zoo Mafia, and that concept is, do crime, go wild, you're a zoo animal, but you're also part of the mafioso, and you're part of a family, a crime family. We'll put a link to that first video up here in one of the cards so that you can check it out. But yeah, we want to combine cute, cuddly with brutal. But today we're going to be talking about if we were to hack the Quest RPG, what that might look like as Zoo Mafia.
So, Quest is a very great system. And before we get any further into, what Quest is all about and how we would extrapolate it here, if you're interested in this kind of concept to do crime and go wild at the same time and talk about, how we would kind of extrapolate Quest into Zoo Mafia, we're starting a newsletter specifically for Zoo Mafia. So if you want to find a way to get updates as well as the eventual free quick start rules for that, we have an email list. You can sign up down below and get access to that so you don't miss anything in regards to our talks and our updates in regards to this new game.
All right, so first we'll kind of go over like an overview of Quest and then like how we can use that to hack into our own system, our own game.
So Quest is super simple. It is a D20 based game. No modifiers.
No other dice, really. I think you just use a D20.
It's just a D20. I mean, there might be a couple things if you're using like other roll tables and whatever have you, but it's all decided by that D20 on success or failure.
All right, so the mechanics are super simple for Quest. You roll a D20, no modifiers. You don't add anything to the roll. On a 1, it is a catastrophe.
On a 2 through a 5, that's a fail.
6 to 10 is a tough choice, meaning you do what you wanted to do, but also, generally the GM will give you 2 choices, and you have to pick one of them, and there are bad things for your character, your party, the world at large.
11 through 19 is a success.
20 is a triumph, basically a super success or a crit success.
So, very, very simplistic. And, just looking at those options, that you've got a 75% chance of when you do something, you are going to succeed. There might be some consequences as part of it, but that's a really solid avenue for a lot of RPGs because you don't normally have that kind of success rate on your average RPG.
Yeah, Quest is super rules light, is very narrative driven. Now, character creation is also very simple. It's like filling out a Mad Libs, in my opinion. If you don't know what that is because you're too young, go ask your parents. But basically, it was just like you would tell a funny story and people would be like, give me a noun, give me an adjective. And that's what the character sheet looks like to me, where you're selecting those. The only mechanical thing that you're going to pick is your role, which is like if you're thinking other RPGs that have character classes like D&D, that would be the role.
Right. Stats are super simple. You're going to have hit points and action points. They're both 10. No changes, no modifications, and there you go.
Yeah, the action points are basically the cost to use those powers that you got from your role.
And typically throughout gameplay, you have set time frames where action points will be rewarded back to you. So you are encouraged to use them because they do kind of come back. And it can happen in the middle of combat. It can happen at a story beat. So you don't have to be like, oh, well, I'm going to sit and rest so I can get these things back.
And then you have equipment. Equipment in Quest makes me think of OSR games a lot, where it is actually a very relevant part of your character, but the most relevant part of having that equipment is what you do with it. For the most part, things in Quest only do 1 to 2 points of damage, so you don't have to think about it in those terms so much when you're using weapons and attacks. To ramp up damage, it's usually going to happen through your special abilities more than anything, and spending those action points. But everything else is just kind of like normal stuff. Do you have a trench coat? Do you have a pocket watch and things like that? And then it'll be up to you to tell your DM how you're going to try and use it in the game. and then they will tell you, if that's viable or not.
So the DM, GM, or storyteller, as Quest, has it called, you can say, well, I have this item. Is that useful here? Some GMs will try to figure out what items characters have and put situations in so that those things become useful. Whereas sometimes players have to get creative and be like, well, is my bag of marshmallows going to be useful in this particular scenario? And it's up to the narrative element of the game to see how things are going to flow out.
All right, and then we have advancement. Advancement is after every session, essentially, you just get a new ability from your role. And the roles actually break up into a bunch of feature trees, and so you have to kind of go through them. But there's a bunch. There's a lot of combinations. But all right, so now the important thing to us is how do we take this rule set and turn it into Zoo Mafia?
So I think this would be really easy to extrapolate. I'm not certain that the simplistic or the 75% success chance on this, really is going to fit with a grim setting such as what we're looking for. But to kind of take it makes it very easy. We don't have to come up with anything beyond what classes or what roles really fit well for us and make them different enough and create those flow charts or those character trees to really work out for this game.
Right, the biggest thing would be coming up with the equipment and the roles. The roles were in this where in Quest are kind of fantasy based. We would replace those with ones that are far more crime based and mafia based and themed. And also again, there's no we could also we're talking about hacking a system. So this is what it is at its core. We could actually add other components to it, right? We could be oh, well, this is how Quest handles their roles. Well, what if there was roles and species, right? And then the species went down a similar path where you start off with, one or two abilities or features, and they have different trees that you could go down. Now, that could actually work out really well because if we wanted to break them down and be amphibian, reptile, mammal, bird, fish, and then each one had their own tree that would kind of determine what kind of animal you were when you kind of start it.
So the other avenue you could look at is because everything is more criminal as opposed to having all of these different, shall we say, category of roles. What if you've got your species and you have got your crime and everything falls and you have access to any of the trees, but it could just be okay, well, even though I'm a leg breaker, I've been kind of working with the safe cracker. So I've got, I've got the first step here, but I've also got, these three things here from my leg breaker. So if you really wanted to kind of make a universal mafia role, you could do so.
Oh, I like that. So you have one, so instead of having roles, you have a role, criminal, right? Or mobster. And then under the role of mobster, you have, all the different crime trees, right? If you're a lockpicker, safecracker, whatever, that would be one tree. But to get the more advanced stuff, you have to travel through kind of the path. So almost will kind of create your role or your class via the selection that you're going for. Or like you said, you can mix and match, and maybe you're more of a generalist. And you're a jack of all trades kind, where you only have access to the first or second tier abilities, but you have a bunch of them instead of having the more advanced ones.
Right. So I think that could allow far more diversity within the rule set and really allow you to make the exact type of character that you're looking to play. Because let's face it, there are all types, within these, characterizations that we've seen in movies and television shows. So it's all right, well, I might not be the best at any of these things, but I know a lot.
Now, there's one thing I'm going to admit, we played Quest, but I'm not a master of the rules. When it comes to tough choices, I don't remember if you have to take the tough choice or if you can choose to fail at the task.
No, you have to pick one. You've succeeded. I mean, that could be an extrapolation of what we look to do. Okay, well, you're trying to do this. Well, you can choose to fail, or you can succeed and one of these two things come up. I mean, that could be our own hack.
Yeah, we could hack that. Because to me, there's a couple things that are very important to me when creating Zoo Mafia. One is I want the criminal element to mean something, and I want the animal element to mean something. I don't want either to just be aesthetic. So I want them to have like mechanical significance as well as the aesthetic to them. But the other thing is this element that everyone else just thinks you're zoo animals, and the idea is like so many different like Disney and kids shows where it's like, oh, this is how everyone perceives the animals, but this is how they are when no one's looking.
Right.
I want that to be a big part of the game.
Right.
Even so much so that like, drawing attention to yourself is part of the game, or not drawing attention to yourself is a big part of the game, where like that's a negative consequence, like a tough choice or a catastrophe might be that you get seen. I like them in the sense that they would lead to more storytelling or adventures. I wouldn't want it to be like one and done. Oh, you rolled a 1, the game is going to be over for you because the humans have discovered there's something wrong. I would prefer it to be like, oh, you know what? You actually got photographed by, as a background thing. And they may not know it now, but once they develop that film, they're certainly going to see that you're walking around and doing not doing animal things, but people things. Right. So this is going to have consequences. So I like a mechanic that kind of like has almost like a doom counter towards like, once you get there, it's all over. And, the humans have discovered you. Your zoo's going to be shut down. The animals are going to be broken up. The families are going to be broken up. And, essentially it kind of ends the campaign.
So that could be another hack that would be put in of, catastrophes or things, like an automatic option on tough choice would be, increase this counter. And you could set it up, either by the group or, by the core rule set as to how many times like that happens.
Yeah, I think in the rules, when we write them, we'll be like, well, what kind of, like, do you want to play this game on easy mode? Do you want to play it on, world ender mode where it's good, you have very little wiggle room. You've got to be perfect all the time.
I would say zoo ender or family ender rather than world, because the world's going to keep going even if like the family's broken up. But the family ending is pretty bad.
Yeah. And then with several degrees in between, so that people can decide like what kind of campaign they want to play.
So and that's of course if we decide to go with Quest as the option for this, because we're still in the works.
Yeah, let us know what you think. Have you played Quest? Would you like to see a hack of it? I know recently there was a successful Kickstarter for a game called Scavenger, which is like...
Which I backed.
Which is post-apocalyptic and mechs, I think. Mm-hmm. And I think they're doing like the same things that we're talking about, where we're like, we would add systems to make this work for the game that we want.
Right.
If you think that's a good idea or don't, let us know in the comments below. And share your thoughts and ideas with the Nerdarchy community.
If you'd like to help Nerdarchy appease that algorithm, do all those nice things like share, subscribe, go ahead and ring that notification bell so you don't miss a single video.
Quick reminders, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, we drop new videos here on the channel, so come on back. Can't wait till then. Don't worry, we've got you covered. Check out the card up here. You can find Design Diary number 2, where we talk about hacking Morkborg instead of Quest RPG.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.